Hey gang, number one Marmaduke fan here. We finally caught up with my backlog, and I think yesterday was my first day in about 2 years. I haven't had a new video come out, and I think I'm at peace with that. I think I'm going to try to aim for not killing myself to make daily content just for the sake of having daily content. Still making... I love making comic book reviews on my phone because it's just really fun, and I think there's like a small core group of people who dig those because I think they kind of appreciate the random what will you say next aspect of it, where I won't really know what the heck I'm going to say until I start talking, and maybe I'll go into strange, magical, faraway lands and come up with a point I didn't realize I had in me the whole time. So anyway, today I read all about Albrecht Dürer, working on a really nicely polished video on young Albrecht Dürer's life. It's going to be a lot of fun. I'm going to illustrate it, but it's going to take me a few weeks. So after I did probably a good, good 50 pages of really in-depth, detailed reading on all this stuff, I wanted to take a break, and so I watched The Sisters Brothers. And what a odd Western movie. So, kind of like how your boy Zach, since your boy Zach inspired this dead meme channel of mine, he has a separate channel for his movie reviews. So, but his convention for titling his movie reviews is blank movie is basically something something. So I'm gonna rip that off like I rip off everything from your boy Zach. The Sisters Brothers is basically a baguette western instead of a spaghetti western. It was literally made in France by a French director, and I kind of think that sort of like how the best spaghetti westerns, the good, the bad, and the ugly. What I think is great about the good and the bad and the ugly is it sort of adds maybe an Italian perspective to the classic American Western that makes it very memorable and very fresh compared to maybe a repetitive American look at the West. I love the good, the bad, and the ugly. And anyway, I don't want to get on a tangent about that. Whereas the Sisters Brothers, it's a French equivalent of that, whereas maybe the French are not as... They like to revolt and kill all the rich people, and they like their weird food, and they like not getting involved in war. Whereas what I'm saying is basically it has kind of that weird French sense of humor to it. That's kind of a black sense of humor. And I weirdly like The Sisters Brothers. You should see it if you would like a really weird Western that's really just hard to pin down what it even is. So maybe the last thing that's kind of like the spoiler-free review. Maybe the minor spoiler review is the first 20 minutes of the movie. I thought, okay, this is a dark and gritty, super realistic take on the West, where they say the F-bomb and they murder people. And then for the next 20 minutes, I was thinking, man, this is a weird deconstruction of the Western, where they're having all of these odd, somewhat deep conversations with each other that you wouldn't expect, Western outlaw murderers to have. And, talking about their relationship to their father and their relationship to each other. And then I kind of thought, okay, this is sort of like a black comedy send-up of the Western. And then for the last 20 minutes, it's just a really genuine, heartfelt story about two brothers. And I don't know, maybe it's that's why I can't pin it down. Is it a deconstruction of the West? Is it a reconstruction of the West? Is it just a black comedy? Is it just a really exciting, gritty Western with really cool action scenes? I don't know. I don't know how to pin it down, but by the end, even though I was kind of hating it or not sure where I was going at first, for the first part of the movie, by the end of the movie, I had thoroughly enjoyed myself, and I found the whole thing kind of sweet by the end of it. All right, here comes the full spoilers for Sisters Brothers. So even the name is kind of a joke. Their names are Eli and Charlie Sisters, and they're brothers, and they are assassins working for the Commodore. The first scene is kind of the grittiest scene in the whole movie and kind of sets the tone. These are not nice guys. They kill people for a rich guy, and they basically kind of function SWAT teams or well-trained police officers. They clear a room, they have a quick draw, and they aim, and yeah, it's basically a time where if you were a good aim and a quick draw and you could reload quickly, you could basically murder everyone in town if you wanted to and walk away rich. That's part of the tragedy and the romance of the West, is how wild and lawless it was. So they basically murder a bunch of guys. They kill the guy they were sent to kill while he's begging for his life. And the whole time they're kind of like making fun of each other like brothers do. And one of them, Eli sisters, runs to the barn to try to save the horses from the fire. He says he just wants a horse, but we later find out that Eli sisters is actually an incredibly sympathetic guy. He doesn't like seeing horses be hurt. He doesn't like seeing people get killed. And so the question is, well, why is this sort of sweet, sympathetic guy a assassin, basically, for a rich guy? And Charlie Sisters just seems like, you know, a drunkard, a lech who's like constantly chasing women and booze and getting to fights. It seems like Charlie Sisters just wants to die in a gunfight, and he's really proud of his reputation as being one of the legendary the Sisters brothers. One of my it is kind of a black comedy that sets up your expectations, and then the joke comes when something happens that's the opposite of what you were expecting. So you were spoiler warned. One of the twisteroos is you assume for the whole first part of the movie that Charlie must be the older brother and Eli must be the younger brother, because Charlie's the rough guy. He's the one who decides where they go and what their pay is going to be and what they're going to do. And Eli seems kind of like a dope, and he just follows Charlie around. But later, 3/4 of the way in the movie, you find out it's actually the opposite. Eli is the older brother, and he's the one who kind of believes it's his duty as an older brother to protect his little brother. And what you find out is they're on the run because Charlie killed their abusive drunk father. Eli feels guilt that he didn't kill their father instead of Charlie, and so he ran off with Charlie to protect his little brother. And they end up as gunfighters just to make ends meet. So after they do their dirty business, the Commodore sends them to track down a guy named Worm, who the Commodore says this Worm guy stole from him. But he doesn't think the Sisters brothers can do it alone. So the Commodore hires this kind of nerdy private detective, John Morris, to go ahead of them and find Worm. And one of the things I love about it is just like how you're always expecting, okay, they're going to go chase down this guy, and then there's a twisteroo that doesn't quite fit with what you expect. So John Morris doesn't like murdering innocent people. So when he finds out, Worm basically seems to fast talk his way out of it and convince John Morris that if you capture me, the Sisters brothers, they're going to torture me and murder me. I haven't done anything wrong, and kind of like appeals to John Morris's conscience. So John Morris betrays the Commodore, and he and Worm make a run for it. So for this whole time in the movie, you're kind of sympathetic to John Morris and Worm, and you're kind of thinking, gee, are the Sisters brothers just going to hunt down and murder these innocent guys? Is that going to be the movie? And meanwhile, the Sisters brothers are having kind of like this strange comedic journey where they're kind of like having these weird sort of sympathetic conversations with each other, and it's clear that Eli just wants to have a good relationship with his little brother. He just wants his little brother to be safe, and the little brother has like no path in life. He just wants to keep fighting. He wants to either die fighting or become like the king of the wild West, and he's on a destructive path. There are some fantastic gunfighting sequences where they're just like flying by the seat of their pants, fast talking their way out of dangerous situations, going for the quick draw. It's a great Western on just kind of like that pure, exciting, wow, gunfight side of it. Eventually, the Sisters brothers track down John Morris and Worm, but by then they've made a lot of gold. They're kind of tired, and like I said, this movie just keeps twisting your expectations. So instead of killing Morris and Worm, the Sisters brothers join up with Morris and Worm, and then I think maybe like the overarching point of this is, are there certain American characteristics that lead us to destruction? Like the American lust for gold, does that lead us to destruction? The American love of violence and the love of beating people up, does that lead us to destruction? That's why I kind of thought was reading it as a deconstruction of the West for a while, because it almost seemed like it wasn't a lecture about toxic masculinity, but it was almost arguing that really, when you think about it, like the guys in the Old West, they weren't white hat John Wayne style heroes. They were probably pretty rough guys who'd murder you in the woods and then maybe like hang you or bury you and then pretend nothing happened if that's what their boss told them to do. So the question for the Sisters brothers is, can they find redemption? Can they find peace? Can they escape from this sort of cycle of violence and this cycle of fighting until they get old and can't fight anymore, or they get killed? Or is there a way out of this situation for them? I won't spoil everything. There are some really great setups and then twist where something happens that you don't expect to happen. It almost kind of like plays with the old Wild West tall tale, where in a lot of tall tales something crazy will happen, or there'll be this magical substance out there in the Old West that'll get you rich. And what's odd about it is it combines almost sort of these magical elements with this sort of rough and tumble, gritty, R-rated perspective on the West, and these sort of down-to-earth, very bad characters, but still with you want to see them redeemed, even though you know that what they're doing is wrong. And by the end, I think it's sweet. It's sweet that it kind of makes a point about being able to find peace and being able to break out of that kind of a lifestyle if you try, even if you don't come out of it unscarred. So I won't spoil anything more. A odd movie. There's some literally psychedelic drug sequences in it. I don't entirely understand all of it. I guess I mostly like it because it's interesting to me to see a weird foreign take on the West, even if I still like the spaghetti Western, Good, Bad, and the Ugly. That movie just like changed my life. I was just so immersed in the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I gotta watch that again. But The Sisters Brothers, if you like Westerns, you'll like it. If you don't like Westerns, it might just be different enough from the stereotypical Western that you'll still like it. And Joaquin Phoenix is in it, who's going to be the Joker in that upcoming Joker movie. So you can kind of get to see him playing a mentally disturbed sort of character to get you pumped for the Joker. That's it. I'm number one Marmaduke fan. I will probably be working on that Albrecht Dürer video during my spare time this week, and I'll be shooting for a Friday or Saturday release of a fantastic look into the early life of Albrecht Dürer. I'm seeing so many connections with comics. It's great diving into art history again. So love you guys. Check out my Subscribe Star if you want to support this channel. Thank you to my Subscribe Star supporters and Super Chat donators. I love you guys, and I'll catch you later.